The story begins with a man coming face to face with a magnificent dragon. When the dragon challenges him, he effortlessly halts its advance and annihilates it with a mere gesture. Despite his overwhelming capability, the man is engulfed in fury and declares his dissatisfaction. He explains that he must get stronger and he needs more power. We then watch as our protagonist, named Ragna, initially a weak and lonely individual, has a life-changing encounter when he's nearly devoured by a dragon. At this critical moment, he meets Leo, a brave and resourceful orphan girl, who invites him to join her in dragon hunting. Despite his initial cowardice, Ragna is inspired by Leo's courage and determination. He learns that dragons, which are magically potent and hostile towards humans, can be killed either by freezing their blood with silver weapons or by exposing them to sunlight. Tragically, during a dragon attack on their city, Leo sacrifices herself to save Ragna. This event becomes the catalyst for Ragna's transformation. He embarks on a relentless quest for vengeance, dedicating his life to eradicating dragons. Over the years, he faces numerous life-threatening battles, evolving from a frequent loser to an unstoppable victor. His perseverance and countless battles lead to his silverine sword becoming one with his body, transcending him beyond human limitations and establishing him as the most formidable dragon hunter. His journey spans 44 years, marking a tale of growth, loss, and ultimate mastery. Ragna's journey takes an unexpected turn with the arrival of Crimson, a high dragon who expresses admiration for Ragna's extraordinary strength as a human. When Ragna violently rejects Crimson's multiple overtures for a partnership to slay dragons together, Crimson retaliates by revealing Ragna's location to other dragons. This leads to a confrontation where Ragna, despite his prowess, finds himself overwhelmed and unable to vanquish all the dragons. In a surprising twist, Artomatica, an angel-winged dragon, intervenes and declares that Ragna will be spared. The dragons reveal a shocking plan to transform Ragna into one of their own, erasing his memories and deep-seated hatred towards dragonkind. As Artomatica prepares to enact this transformation with a dagger, Ragna, clinging to his sense of purpose and identity, makes a desperate choice. He stabs himself in the chest, freezing his own heart with his silverine sword to prevent the dragon's blood from corrupting him. Later, Crimson, impressed with Ragna's determination, decides to revive him for the purpose of eradicating all dragons. However, this plan ultimately fails. Faced with this defeat and a lifetime of regrets, the older Ragna resorts to using magic to travel back in time to confront his younger self just moments before the tragic death of Leo, the person he deeply idolized. The encounter between the older Ragna and his younger self is intense and emotional. The older Ragna, filled with self-disgust, berates his younger self for not being strong enough to protect Leo. He reveals his eventual status as the strongest human alive, capable of defeating even the dragon god, but laments that this power is pointless as everyone he cared about is already dead. Overcome with regret and a sense of futility, the older Ragna is struck by a profound existential crisis. In a pivotal moment, the younger Ragna, desperate to change the course of events and save Leo, pleads for the strength of his older self. However, the older Ragna, in a drastic and symbolic gesture, stabs his younger version in the heart with his sword. This act not only signifies the transfer of his formidable powers but also represents the older Ragna's acceptance of his fate and the futility of his past actions. The younger Ragna's body begins to freeze, indicating a significant transformation, as he awakens his newfound power. The older Ragna declares that from this point forward, his younger self will embody both their powers and memories, effectively merging their identities. However, this comes at a significant cost. Despite the potential consequences, the younger Ragna is determined to proceed, driven by his unwavering resolve to protect Leo. Meanwhile, Leo, exhausted from battle, confronts Grumwort, whom she mistakenly assumes to be a dragon god. Grumwort, taking offense to being compared to the royal dragon bloodline, aggressively corrects her and introduces himself as Grumwort, the 10th seed of the blood of the wing, and the weakest superior dragon. Despite his lower status among dragons, Grumwort boasts of his strength and his ability to overpower humans. In an unexpected turn, Grumwort shares with Leo the reason behind the impending destruction of their city and kingdom. He reveals that humans are to be used as offerings to the dragon's gods. He specifically mentions a pastry shop in Donapiru, favored by his god, which recently went out of business following a robbery. This closure, according to Grumwort, led to the dragon god's depression and the subsequent decision to annihilate the kingdom. This revelation also explains why Donapiru had been spared from dragon attacks for the last decade. It was under their protection due to the god's fondness for the pastry shop. As they speak, Ragna showcases the immense power he has acquired through his fusion with his older self. As Grumwort, the dragon, prepares to attack Leo with his blades, he senses a similar threat behind him. However, finding nothing but darkness and mist, he dismisses it as an illusion. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts, marked by the sound of armor dropping in the sight of frozen dragons. Ragna, now a formidable force, effortlessly defeats attacking dragons with mere touches. He unleashes an overwhelming aura, his ultimate technique, that incapacitates the dragons in his vicinity. When he confronts Grumwort, the dragon feels an intense, chilling power, reminiscent of the dragon monarch's formidable presence. These monarchs, chosen by their god to lead the dragon bloodlines, possess their own ultimate powers, instilling fear and respect among dragons. Despite initially denying the possibility, Grumwort, feeling threatened, transforms into his true dragon form, boasting about his strength and ultimate form. Yet, in a stunning display of power, Ragna freezes him into a giant ice cube with a simple command. Both Leo and Sykes, witnessing this, are astonished at Ragna's transformation from a perceived weakling to a being of immense power. Upon Ragna's command, all the frozen dragons shatter into pieces. As Ragna regains his composure, Leo calls out to him. The thoughts of his older and younger selves merge as he runs towards her, overwhelmed by emotions and the realization of what could have been if he had this power earlier. They share a poignant moment, with Ragna breaking down in tears and calling out her name. Leo, although confused by his reaction, comforts him with a smile and reassurance, acknowledging his hard work and the strength he has attained. On the same day, a catastrophic event unfolds as 6 cities come under attack from a group of superior dragons. These dragons ruthlessly exterminate everyone in their path, leading to the fall of 6 cities. Remarkably, one city, the birthplace of Ragna, known as the Reaper of Dragonkind, survives this onslaught. The next day, Leo updates Ragna on the situation facing their city. Sykes enters and inquires about Ragna's plan of action in response to the imminent threat posed by the dragons. Ragna, aware of the dragons' adherence to their own laws and the fact that they won't attack a place not sanctioned by their god, suggests that they should leave the country to escape the dragon's wrath. As this plan is being discussed, Sykes, seemingly puzzled, questions Ragna's true identity. However, in an unexpected turn, Ragna falls asleep mid-conversation. Sykes is left confused by Ragna's sudden lapse into sleep, but Leo offers an explanation. She reveals that Ragna has been secretly undergoing intense training. Ragna, in a state of sleep, is emotionally stirred, calling out for Leo and shedding tears. Leo, despite assuring him of her presence, internally questions her role and necessity in Ragna's life now that he possesses newfound power. Amidst this emotional scene, an unexpected and alarming event occurs. The ground begins to shake, signaling imminent danger. They discover that the forest itself seems to be advancing towards them in an attack. Leo, driven by her instinct to protect, rushes out to confront the threat, leaving Ragna still asleep and vulnerable. The narrative then shifts to a different setting, where we are introduced to a chef apologizing to a character named Lord Temruagtov. The chef has prepared a lamb dish baked in a pie crust for the Lord. However, Lord Temruagtov, expressing impatience and dissatisfaction, demands the meal to be served by the maid. Upon tasting the dish, the Lord exhibits a moment of satisfaction, complimenting its deliciousness, but then disturbingly notes that it doesn't compare to the chef's culinary skills. This scene takes a dark turn as Lord Temruagtov transforms into a monstrous entity and gruesomely devours the chef, followed by the maids, sparing only one. Back in the city, Leo is engaged in a fierce battle against an onslaught of animated tree branches. Despite her valiant efforts in defeating numerous adversaries, the battle seems unending. An explosion nearby catches her attention, but her primary concern is Ragna, who has been ensnared by the branches. As she rushes to his aid, she too is attacked. At this critical moment, Ragna, sensing Leo's peril, awakens from his sleep. His call for Leo and the release of his immense power is so potent that it even catches the attention of the monstrous lord previously introduced. Ragna's aura is so formidable that it freezes every tree branch in the vicinity. Concerned about the encroaching forest on the city, Ragna teleports to the location to address the threat. Leo attempts to follow, but Ragna is preoccupied with self-reproach for letting his guard down after saving Leo. He accelerates, determined to confront the ongoing danger, and soon encounters the monster from before. In a bold move, Ragna dropkicks the monster, sending it flying away. A surviving maid, witnessing this scene, is left in confusion. When she inquires about Ragna's well-being, he mistakenly identifies her as Crimson, a dragon monarch. Ragna confronts her, believing her to be a key figure in his and the world's fate, responsible for linking past and present and transferring powers. He accuses her of being a traitor to the dragons and involved in a plot to kill the dragon god. Ragna, however, is unaware of her true identity. She reveals herself as Eliza, not Crimson, which leaves Ragna perplexed. Despite his aggression and accusations, Eliza responds with a slap, further adding to the confusion. At this moment, Leo arrives, questioning whether Ragna has already dealt with the dragons, unaware of the intense and complicated confrontation he just had with Eliza. The monster who Ragna had previously dropkicked, revealing himself as the 8th seed of the dragons, reappears in a fit of anger. He launches an attack on Ragna, vowing to devour him. However, Ragna swiftly counters by summoning a mysterious ball and throwing it into the monster's mouth. He then quickly escapes with Leo in his arms just as the monster explodes from the inside. Once they are at a safe distance, Leo expresses her admiration for Ragna's newfound strength, something she had predicted but did not expect to manifest so soon. She acknowledges the challenge of keeping pace with his power. Ragna, however, seems to ignore her comments and instructs her to lead the townspeople across the border to safety. Leo, feeling sidelined and disregarded, confronts Ragna, demanding he listen to her orders. In a rare moment of vulnerability, she loses her composure, later apologizing for her outburst. Ragna, reflecting on this, realizes he has always seen Leo as a strong, composed figure, overlooking the fact that she is still a 12-year-old child. He blames himself for her premature maturity, forced by his own perceived weakness. In a heart-wrenching decision, Ragna tells Leo that they can no longer be together for her safety, as he sees her as too vulnerable. Hurt and enraged, Leo attempts to attack him, but Ragna effortlessly stops her blade and leaves her, disappearing from sight. Hours later, Leo regains consciousness, finding herself with Sykes. He explains that they have left the country, following Ragna's directive as their only chance of survival. As Leo processes this, she reminisces about a past conversation with Ragna, where she shared her dream and Ragna expressed his desire simply to be by her side. Overwhelmed by these memories and her failed attempt to harm Ragna, Leo breaks down in tears. Meanwhile, Ragna, observing Leo and her group from a distance, encounters Elise. Despite Elise questioning his decision to leave Leo, Ragna insists he is fine. However, as he turns away, his tears betray his true feelings. He confesses to Elise that he can only be around those he does not care for, as he fears they would all eventually perish. Elise expresses her intention to return home, but Ragna continues to address her as Crimson, mistakenly believing her to be a dragon monarch. He explains that her dragon powers are blocked, meaning she no longer possesses the strengths or weaknesses of a dragon. Elise denies this and walks away, but Ragna suddenly collapses from exhaustion and a high fever. Elise, upon finding Ragna unconscious, tends to him and later explains that she couldn't abandon the person who saved her. Ragna, waking up in front of a fireplace, is puzzled by his body's reaction and wonders if he is still adapting to his powers. He seeks Elise's opinion, but she insists she is not Crimson. Ragna confirms the dragon's intention to destroy the kingdom and reveals his mission to hunt all dragons, starting with the winged monarch. Elise is skeptical, but Ragna assures her that their future selves accomplished this task in the future, and they can do it even faster now. As Elise contemplates Ragna's claims about his future self and her true identity as Crimson, which she doesn't recall, she finds Ragna's story intriguing. She secretly analyzes Ragna's body while he sleeps and discovers two things. His body is fused with a silver sword, and he has immense potential. These revelations excite her, as she eagerly anticipates testing this new method of dragon slaying. However, their conversation is interrupted when they notice dragons heading towards Leo's group. Without hesitation, Ragna picks up Elise, presumably to rush to their aid, demonstrating his continued concern and protective instincts towards those he cares about. He asks Elise for orders, still under the impression that she is a figure of authority. Elise, confused but intrigued, tells him to obliterate the dragons. Ragna complies, skillfully defeating the dragons with his aura-generated blades that freeze them upon contact. Elise, analyzing the swords, realizes their extraordinary power, capable of freezing and potentially killing superior dragons. She contemplates the immense and dangerous potential of Ragna's power, musing that if controlled, it could be a formidable force. In a bizarre turn of events, Elise, or Crimson as Ragna believes her to be, vomits a pool of slime that transforms into a weapon against the dragons, combining and dissolving them. Revealing her true form, she proposes a partnership with Ragna, with the condition that he drinks a special poison that will ensure his loyalty by activating if he betrays her. Ragna, without hesitation, drinks the poison, showing his commitment to their cause. Crimson then crafts a throne from the dragon bones, declaring their joint mission to slay the dragon god and exterminate all dragons. Ragna, in turn, makes a solemn promise that Crimson will be the last dragon he eliminates. Their agreement is unexpectedly interrupted by the voice of the slime, which had been residing inside Crimson. The slime transforms into a small child and expresses disapproval of Ragna's attitude towards Crimson. Crimson, pleased with the interaction between Ragna and the slime, is eager to learn more about the future. Ragna's simple response, "We lost," piques Crimson's interest. He probes further about the number of dragon monarchs eliminated and other significant events like the World Magic and the Great Crusade, as well as Ragna's ultimate fate. Ragna, however, is unable to provide clear answers, admitting that his memories are vague and only surface under specific triggers. This admission causes Crimson to doubt Ragna's trustworthiness. Ragna insists that his memories return sporadically, like when he recognized Crimson. Realizing that specific stimuli are needed to unlock Ragna's memories, Crimson contemplates this peculiarity. As they continue their conversation, Crimson inquires about the nature of Ragna's power. Ragna assures him that his power, a gift from his future self, is embedded in his body, not reliant on his fluctuating memories. Meanwhile, the story shifts to a city under attack by Dragonkind. A group of hunters is protecting the survivors, with their leader rallying them to stay strong. In a dramatic entrance, Ragna arrives in a truck, quickly dispatching 2 dragons and impressively defeating the rest, leaving the hunters in awe of his abilities. Crimson, observing Ragna's prowess, expresses interest in his silverine battle arts. However, he suggests that these skills should be utilized by other dragon hunters, pointing to the group they've just encountered. Ragna observes the group leader consoling a young child, promising safety across the border. Seizing the opportunity, Crimson reassures the group that the nearby dragons have been hunted down and introduces Ragna as the Reaper, a master dragon hunter. This claim confounds everyone, including Ragna, as they struggle to make sense of Crimson's exaggerated portrayal of Ragna's achievements and role. Crimson introduces himself as Ragna's companion and a mage to the group of survivors and hunters. Michael, the group's leader, approaches them with a request. He pleads with Crimson and Ragna to help defeat a powerful dragon, the third seat named Tempest Cell de Saz-Toi, which forced them to flee Tordier City after it unleashed a devastating tornado. Crimson, using his knowledge as a mage, recognizes de Saz and its ability to hide within the wind. Ragna, fueled by anger, attempts to leave to hunt de Saz, but Crimson stops him. He reveals to Ragna that although his power has removed the limits on his mind, his body cannot keep up. Ragna's physical state is severely compromised, with damaged muscle fibers rendering him immobile for the next 3 days. As the conversation progresses, Crimson subtly manipulates the emotions of the group, especially Michael. He points out their guilt for fleeing and ignoring others in need during the attack by de Saz. Michael is consumed by this guilt, admitting that he only protected the last group to avoid self-blame for not saving others. Seizing this moment of vulnerability, Crimson presents Michael with a sword, claiming it will grant him the power to defeat dragons. Michael, desperate for redemption and power, accepts the sword. He then leads them to the old city of Tordier, stopping at a destroyed building with only a door remaining. Using a magical key, Crimson opens the door, hinting at a new phase of their journey and the potential for significant confrontations ahead. The hunters are astounded as they step into a room, magically located in America, filled with guns. They're impressed by the weaponry, which Crimson explains are more powerful than those in their own country. The crucial element, however, is the bullets, which are being infused with Ragna's power, despite his immobilized state. As the hunters practice their shooting, Crimson's maniacal satisfaction is evident, drawing a comment from Ragna about his twisted smile. Crimson, sensing Ragna's unease, confronts him about his attitude towards involving others in their fight. He points out Ragna's reluctance to be around people for fear of their death, and accuses him of abandoning Leo. Crimson further probes into Ragna's motives, suggesting that Leo is his driving force, and ponders the impact on Ragna if Leo were to be harmed or killed. He insists that Leo is now integral to their mission, which includes eradicating all dragons. Taking his manipulation further, Crimson proposes a disturbing plan to keep Leo safe. To place her in a magical storage space in a comatose state. This would ensure her safety while they continue their mission, keeping her out of harm's way and under Ragna's care. Ragna, infuriated by Crimson's suggestion and mockery, attempts to punch him but is too weak. Crimson further taunts Ragna by kicking him and berating his inability to understand him. Crimson then declares his intention to take on de Saz, leaving Ragna behind. At this moment, the slime, which has been scouting de Saz's movements, returns with a report. Crimson deduces that de Saz, the third seat of the dragon hierarchy, has been stationed in the town to stand by, and is currently idling there. He sees this as an opportunity, planning to use the dragon's presence for his own strategic purposes. However, Crimson keeps his knowledge about the survivors a secret, intending to manipulate everyone involved to his advantage. He then reveals his plan to the group, igniting excitement and enthusiasm among them as they set off. Upon encountering Desses, Crimson boldly uses a megaphone to taunt the dragon, calling him a pathetic loser and dismissing his bloodline. This provocation annoys Desses, who is baffled by the audacity of a human speaking so disrespectfully. As the confrontation escalates, the dragon hunters, led by their fearless leader, begin to doubt their chances of success, especially upon witnessing the massive tornado summoned by Desses. Despite their fear, the leader rallies his team, urging them not to lose courage as they execute a tactical retreat. Desses, determined not to let the dragon hunters escape, intensifies the tornado surrounding him, ensuring that it obstructs their escape. Crimson quickly realizes that the tornado is moving faster than their car, making a careless retreat impossible. Desses, noticing their retreat towards the sunlight, which he detests, is irked but not overly concerned due to his superior regenerative abilities. Crimson, aware that sunlight alone is insufficient to significantly harm a dragon of Desses' caliber, commands the gunner in their group to open fire with a machine gun mounted on their truck, shooting silverine bullets. These bullets, uniquely infused with Ragnar's silverine magic, are effective not in freezing the dragon's blood directly but rather the magic within it. This crucial distinction means that when the bullets contact anything magically controlled, like the Desses tornado, they cause immediate freezing. The Desses, puzzled by the impact on his tornado, mistakenly assumes these are standard silver bullets. Crimson, cunningly reading his thoughts, knows he underestimates their strategy, believing they have simply acquired a high-quality weapon. In reality, the machine gun fires leaf bullets charged with Ragnar's unique magic, further enhancing their effectiveness. As the battle rages on, the hunters' continuous fire creates an expanding column of ice within the tornado. They maneuver deftly, avoiding the debris flung by the powerful winds. The Desses, confident in his control over the tornado, remains unfazed by the surface-level attacks. However, Crimson, anticipating his thoughts and overconfidence, orders her men to switch to a different set of bullets, also infused with Ragnar's magic but with a significantly greater impact. These new bullets begin to destabilize the tornado, forcing the Desses to exert more power to maintain control. The situation escalates as the dragon hunters persist in their assault, creating more ice columns and further destabilizing the tornado. Faced with this unexpected and effective strategy, the Desses is thrown into chaos and fury. He loses control of the tornado, and his rage intensifies against the humans, particularly the bounty hunters challenging him. As the Desses' anger intensifies, his tornado grows massively, engulfing everything around it in destruction. However, the hunters' relentless assault with silverine-infused bullets has turned the tornado into a massive ice column, which suddenly shatters, causing the Desses to fall out, stunned and disoriented. To his shock, dawn breaks, exposing him to the sunlight he despises. In a dramatic moment, Ragnar, utilizing his silverine magic, forms a wall with arm-like extensions that snatch the Desses from the air. An arrow, also charged with silverine magic, pierces the dragon's back, causing his blood to start freezing. Desperate, the Desses struggles to use his wind magic, but only a feeble breeze emerges. The five knights work to ensure the arrow's effect is sustained, combining its power with the sunlight to trigger a combustion. However, an unexpected force uproots the ground, dislodging the arrow and freeing the Desses. Enraged and disoriented, he attempts to remove the arrow, only to be struck by the truck used by the soldiers, further scattering his form. Crimson, observing the chaos, reflects on the battle's complexity and the factors that led to their victory: the Desses' pride, sunlight, silverine magic, and the dragon's negligence. She points out that these elements are crucial in defeating superior dragons. Ragnar, witnessing Crimson's tactics and effectiveness, gains a newfound respect and awe for her abilities. He acknowledges her as one of the best dragon hunters and contemplates the potential of their partnership in bringing down dragonkind. However, he secretly vows to hunt Crimson once their mission is complete. After the battle, Crimson equips the knights with vehicles and weapons for their escape. Before they leave, he casts a spell to erase their memories of him. With a radio pulled from his hat, a male voice announces a message from the less royal army. 5 days earlier, the narrative shifts to the king in his castle, who is stunned to learn that Donapiru was not destroyed by an invading city but by dragons. He immediately orders the formation of a unit composed of soldiers from nearby cities to aid Donapiru and instructs the recruitment of dragon hunters, with a strict directive not to engage any superior dragons. As the guard tasked with these orders departs, he ponders the sudden dragon attack and the safety of the royal capital, which is protected by a magic barrier. He acknowledges the overwhelming strength of a single superior dragon compared to humans. Suddenly, a bird-like creature, Artomatica, the first seed of the Bloodwing and an angel-winged dragon, descends, causing time to seemingly stand still. She apologizes for her unannounced appearance, explaining that she has manipulated time to avoid being seen in the royal capital due to her status as a dragon monarch. Artomatica then presents the king with the head of a dragon, explaining that she did not sanction the attack on Donapiru. She apologizes for the lack of control over the rogue dragon, offering the dragon's head as both punishment and evidence of her authority. The king, initially perplexed by Artomatica's calm and compassionate demeanor, which contradicts his perception of dragons, eventually accepts her apology. Artomatica expresses her desire for the people of Lys not to fear death but to disappear quietly. She discloses that she had no initial plans to attack Donapiru, but the destruction of the country is a divine decree from God, and she has been secretly preparing for its complete annihilation. She ominously predicts that no one will escape the impending doom. The king, in a desperate attempt to avert this catastrophe, orders Artomatica to cease her plans. However, she calmly informs him that it's too late to stop what has been set in motion. When the king warns of potential war, Artomatica dismisses his concerns, indicating that any conflict would result in a one-sided massacre. In a critical moment, the king tries to use the power of his solar barrier ring as a weapon against Artomatica. Unexpectedly, his priest, now revealed to be a dragon named Borgres, intervenes and attacks the king to protect the dragon monarch. Artomatica acknowledges the actions of Nebulim, who created a shield for her protection, but reprimands Borgres for his unnecessary violence against the king. Demonstrating her extraordinary powers, Artomatica reverses time to heal the king. When he regains consciousness, he is bewildered by his sudden revival. Artomatica explains her ability to manipulate time and restore his body. The king, amazed by her powers, questions if she is a deity, but she humbly describes herself as a mere servant of a higher divine will. In a chilling proposal, Artomatica asks the king to cooperate with her to provide the masses with a death without causing them undue suffering. She urges him to lead his people in this dire time, extending her hand to him in a gesture of ominous partnership. The king, faced with an impossible situation and the overwhelming presence of Artomatica, takes her hand, signifying a reluctant acceptance of her terms. As dragon attacks escalate, citizens evacuate the borders, leading to a dramatic influx of refugees into the capital. The king, seemingly indifferent to the future consequences, allows the refugees to enter, showing a lack of concern for the mounting crisis. Amidst this chaos, Artomatica, the first seed of the Bloodwing, reveals that their plan is unfolding as expected. In a chilling revelation, she announces that within 10 days, everyone in the capital will face their end. However, she faces a setback. Dornia, the ninth seed of the dragons, has been defeated by Starlia, the kingdom's second princess. In response, Artomatica dispatches Terra and Zora, the fifth and sixth seats, to pursue Starlia. Another concern arises. Temruagtoff and Grimwit, along with others near the southern border, have been mysteriously wiped out. Suspicions arise about the involvement of dragons from other bloodlines or the Solarians, but Artomatica's elder suggests it might be an unknown threat. This possibility excites Walthikamui, another dragon, but Artomatica swiftly burns him for his actions, indicating a tension and power struggle within the dragon hierarchy. She then revives him, suspending his punishment and tasking him with subduing the new threat. Walthikamui, the second seat, who seems more interested in flirting with Artomatica than focusing on the task, is quickly knocked out by her. He casually assures her of his speed and capability, disappearing in a flash of lightning toward the horizon, indicating his readiness to address the mysterious threat. Ragna, now awake and facing Crimson's new form, contemplates the situation they are in. Despite his distaste for Crimson's personality, Ragna acknowledges that Artomatica poses a greater threat. He labels Crimson as disagreeable but Artomatica as a genuine psychopath, using a facade of kindness to mask her lethal intentions. Ragna vows to hunt Artomatica again, driven by her manipulative and dangerous nature. Crimson, however, advises caution, suggesting they wait a few years before confronting Artomatica. He is uncertain of the extent of Ragna's power and fears the consequences of Ragna unleashing his full potential. Crimson speculates that the dragons are likely aware of the recent events near the border and sees this as an opportune moment to strike at Artomatica, expecting her to send Woltakamui to investigate. Crimson's plan is twofold. Either Ragna succeeds in defeating Artomatica, or Crimson will intervene to save him. This strategy is essentially an experiment to determine their next move. As they approach the capital, Crimson considers seeking an audience with the winged progenitor. Meanwhile, Artomatica, in her tower, communicates with the dragon god, revealed to be a seemingly clueless child. This child god, responsible for the kingdom's impending destruction over a trivial matter like a favorite bakery's closure, appears unaware of Lee's existence. Artomatica interprets this as a divine mandate to obliterate the kingdom to align with the god's vision. The trio arrives at the capital, where Crimson devises a plan to infiltrate the old district near the palace. To blend in, Crimson adopts the disguise of Veronica, which causes Ragna to react with disgust. Crimson reveals he suffers from social anxiety and struggles in crowded environments. Crimson questions Ragna about how he managed to survive in the large city of Renabura despite his social anxiety. Ragna reflects that Leo's presence was a crucial support for him. When Crimson wonders if they should abandon their plan, Ragna adamantly refuses, determined to confront Artomatica regardless of the personal cost. Crimson, noting Ragna's resolve, expresses anticipation and leaves the slime to watch over him while he steps away for a couple of hours. He instructs Ragna to follow a list of behaviors to avoid being labeled a traitor and then disappears into the crowd. Observing the unusually low number of people on the streets, despite the influx of over 2 million refugees, Crimson suspects that a covert operation to eliminate people is underway. He then enters a bar and interrupts a conversation between a general and some local girls. The general, revealed to be Crimson's undercover agent, is reprimanded for not focusing on his mission to gather information. Crimson then summons Chimera, who initially appears as a panther but transforms into a catgirl. This unveiling suggests that Crimson has a network of unique and powerful allies. He shares his strategy to have Ragna confront Artomatica. Outside, Ragna and the slime encounter a crowd gathered around curtains, which the military officers soon pull back to reveal the bodies of dragons. The officer reassures the citizens of their safety, claiming the army's superiority over the dragons, especially as the dragon bodies start burning in the sunlight. Ragna, skeptical of the army's display and tactics, begins to walk away but is startled to see Artomatica casually strolling down the street. Remembering Crimson's warning not to engage Artomatica alone, Ragna struggles to suppress his urge to confront her. His internal conflict intensifies when Artomatica approaches him, commenting on his pale appearance. This encounter underscores the tension and potential danger of a direct confrontation with Artomatica. Meanwhile, Crimson, planning to exploit Ragna in her strategy against Artomatica, discusses with Golem the feasibility of this plan. Golem expresses doubt, citing Artomatica's ability to manipulate time, as demonstrated in a video of Ultima exhibiting similar powers. Crimson acknowledges Ultima's impressive time manipulation abilities but points out that she cannot stop and rewind time simultaneously. She identifies this limitation as Artomatica's weakness, suggesting that continuous attacks could eventually deplete her magical reserves. Crimson believes that Ragna has the potential to defeat Artomatica, drawing confidence from their future selves' past success against her. However, Crimson is concerned about interference from Nebulum and Borg, two other dragon entities potentially protecting Artomatica. To counter this threat, she orders her servants to handle them. Artomatica, curious about Ragna's behavior, approaches him, but is warned off by Slime due to Ragna's discomfort in crowds. Surprisingly, she apologizes and reveals that she is helping a boy find his parents. Despite knowing the havoc Artomatica has wreaked, Ragna confronts her about her actions. She dismisses the need for a reason to show kindness, leaving Ragna conflicted about his next move. As Ragna tries to distance himself, Nebulum appears, suspecting Ragna might be a dragon hunter. Artomatica covers for him, attributing his discomfort to the crowd. Ragna retreats to an alley, questioning his decision. Slime offers to contact Crimson, but Ragna, having identified his target, decides to act independently. Slime then informs Crimson that Ragna has betrayed their plan. Meanwhile, Artomatica assists the boy in reuniting with his parents but ponders whether they are marked for disappearance. Ragna overhears Nebulum's ability to make people disappear painlessly and Artomatica's desire for humans to experience happiness before vanishing. This revelation triggers a strong reaction from Ragna, who confronts Artomatica about her twisted sense of kindness. The confrontation escalates quickly. Artomatica attempts to use her time manipulation powers, but Ragna aggressively attacks, slicing and punching her, preventing her from controlling time. He launches her into the air and bombards her with fire and swords, overwhelming her defenses. Crimson, upon learning of Ragna's confrontation with Artomatica, is initially surprised. He realizes the situation presents an opportunity to gauge Ragna's true strength and potential. If Ragna can overpower Artomatica, it would validate their plan. However, Crimson is also prepared to intervene if necessary. As Crimson observes the intense battle between Ragna and Artomatica, he receives an update indicating that 2 significant dragons they were tracking are unaccounted for. He recalls that the protective barrier around the capital vanished with the onset of battle, leading him to suspect that Nebulum might be involved in its disappearance. Crimson instructs Chimera to return, and his helper reports that Borg, another powerful dragon, has left the castle. The helper is tasked with slowing down Borg, a challenging feat given the limitations of his current form. Meanwhile, Artomatica finds herself in a desperate situation, repeatedly defeated by Ragna's relentless attacks. Her ability to manipulate time and resurrect herself is being pushed to its limits, and she senses her powers waning. In a concurrent development, Borg attempts to aid Artomatica but is thwarted by Golem's long-range attacks, disrupting his dragon form. Ragna, however, becomes trapped in a magic barrier created by Nebulum. Nebulum, determined to enable Artomatica's escape, uses her blood to summon dragons to attack Ragna. Despite this, Ragna manages to break free from the barrier using his potent silvering magic. Nebulum intensifies her efforts to restrain Ragna, but Slime intervenes, consuming Nebulum and freeing Ragna. Although Artomatica has fled the scene, Ragna pursues her, unleashing his full silverine power. In a dramatic twist, Artomatica employs her last resort, turning back time for the entire world, a feat she rarely uses due to its immense magical cost. Ragna finds himself back at the scene where the dragons were being burned, sensing that something is amiss. Artomatica appears, having stopped time, and contemplates her next move, unsure how to handle Ragna. Artomatica decides to eliminate Ragna, believing it's the most pragmatic solution. She relocates the surrounding humans to focus solely on Ragna, intending to end his life gently. However, she becomes intrigued by the presence of the slime and Ragna's unexpected ability to move his finger, despite her control over time. As Nebulance attacks Ragna for revenge, Artomatica realizes that Ragna is unaffected by the time manipulation. She instructs Nebulance to cease the assault, explaining that Ragna's extraordinary resilience renders their attacks futile. She compares Ragna's body to a strong silver sword, inherently resistant to magic. Artomatica then strategizes to use a potent light attack against Ragna, requesting Borg to communicate this plan to the king. She also asks Nebulance to create a barrier to protect the citizens. Despite these efforts, Ragna begins to rise, blocking Artomatica's escape route, much to her dismay. Artomatica discovers that her time control abilities are not fully effective against Ragna. Unknown to her, Ragna's movement during the frozen time is due to him having her blood, a consequence of events in the future. Crimson speculates that Artomatica's time magic allows specific individuals to remain mobile, but she inadvertently included Ragna in this group. Ragna, undeterred by Nebulance's barrier, relentlessly advances towards Artomatica. As he draws near, Artomatica is visibly frightened by his approach. In a desperate move, she resets time to its normal flow, but Ragna's momentum remains unaffected. He continues to breach her defenses, posing a significant threat to the Dragon Monarch. In a critical moment, Ragna, having exerted his future powers excessively, starts bleeding and collapses in pain. The king takes this opportunity to launch an Aurora Ray attack on Ragna, leaving a cloud of dust and debris. When the dust settles, Nebulance observes a human woman, though her identity is unclear. Meanwhile, Borg urges Artomatica to freeze time again so they can escape, but she is too shocked and traumatized by the turn of events to act. Crimson observes Ragna's critical condition, attributing it to his disregard for advice and overuse of his powers. Artomatica, who has always perceived battles as barbaric and futile, is now deeply shaken. Her confidence in her time control abilities, and her belief in her power to overcome brute force, is shattered by Ragna's resilience. Crimson sees this change in Artomatica, no longer viewing her as a powerful winged monarch but rather as a frail and scared individual. In a state of panic and confusion, Artomatica attempts to cast another spell, but Crimson is one step ahead, detonating a building to create a distraction. He continues to manipulate the situation, setting off more explosions across the capital. This chaos is a stark contrast to Artomatica's desire for a painless end for the people, and she is overwhelmed by the destruction and suffering around her. Crimson's strategy is to mentally and emotionally break Artomatica. He announces that thousands have died in the explosions and challenges her to act in accordance with her compassionate nature. As people in the streets cry out for help, Artomatica is confronted with the harrowing choice of using her powers to save them or letting them suffer. She considers using her power to rewind time for the entire world to undo the damage, but Nebulon cautions her against it, warning that such an action would drain all her magical energy. Faced with this dilemma, Artomatica breaks down, tormented by her inability to prevent the suffering she sought to avoid. Meanwhile, Crimson, frustrated by the turn of events, decides to retreat from the scene. He meets Golem in an alleyway and, infuriated by Golem's failure to execute his orders precisely, violently attacks him. Crimson had commanded Golem to plant bombs at strategic locations, including the big clock tower and the castle walls, but Golem admits he neglected these tasks due to his personal interests in the area. Crimson's brutal reaction reveals his unchanging, ruthless nature. Despite Golem's attempt to test whether Crimson's character had been altered by recent events, especially his interactions with Ragna, it becomes clear that Crimson remains the same cold and calculating individual. Realizing Golem's disobedience, Crimson gives him a new order: to abandon his current form and monitor the movements of the dragon bloodlines in his base form, a task Golem perceives as a harsh punishment. Nebulum is emotionally devastated by his perceived failure to protect Artomatica. He reflects on a past conversation with Borg about the dragon maturation period, a crucial phase where dragons adapt to their progenitor's blood. Nebulum's incredibly rapid maturation indicates his extraordinary potential, surpassing even that of Kamui. Despite this potential, Nebulum feels powerless and yearns to become stronger. As he is engulfed by magic, undergoing a transformative evolution, Crimson senses this significant change in Nebulum. He realizes that Nebulum has reached a new level of power and is now actively searching for him in Ragna. However, Crimson remains confident in his safety, residing in a specially created room that acts as a gate to different parts of the world, rendering it virtually impossible for Nebulum to locate or breach. Crimson, connecting to his lunar base, acknowledges that while events did not unfold as planned, the outcome has been unexpectedly beneficial. He begins preparations for the upcoming years, indicating a shift in his strategy. Meanwhile, Ragna, still reeling from the battle's intensity, is determined not to leave until he has completed his mission to hunt down Artomatica. Despite his weakened state, he insists on continuing the fight. Crimson tries to reassure Ragna, emphasizing that the battle is over and the results have been favorable. Crimson's reaction to Artomatica's panic during the battle reveals a blend of satisfaction and contempt. In a heated moment, Ragna's relentless determination to eliminate Artomatica is on full display. Ignoring Crimson's warnings, he struggles to his feet, activating his Silverine Battle Arts aura despite being severely weakened. Crimson, surprised by Ragna's persistent strength, orders Chimera to restrain him. When Ragna tries to leave the chamber using his technique, he inadvertently creates a crack in the pocket dimension, showcasing the immense power he wields even in his weakened state. Crimson attempts to repair the dimensional crack, but their situation worsens as Nebulum locates them. The door to their chamber becomes inoperable, trapped by the combined powers of Ragna and Nebulum. Crimson, now in a panic, lashes out at Nebulum and commands Golem to eliminate him. Golem, positioned with a Silverine sniper rifle, manages to shoot Nebulum in the head, but the resilient dragon calls for Borg to counterattack the sniper. Amidst this chaos, Ragna breaks free from Chimera's restraint. He confronts Nebulum, and the two make a grim vow to kill each other, escalating the tension and hostility. Crimson, frustrated by the unfolding events, blames Ragna for aiding their enemy and sabotaging her plans. Despite the volatile situation, Ragna continues to gather his aura, pushing his powers to their limits. Elsewhere, in the military training ground of Northeast Lys, a girl, revealed to be a princess, is seen eating dragon meat as a form of retaliation against the dragons. A report comes in about an unexpected arrival via their teleportation circle underground. The princess, intrigued, decides to investigate, leaving the nature of the newcomer a mystery to be revealed. Crimson, blindfolded and in custody, reflects on his unfortunate circumstances. After being expelled from the globe chamber due to the chaotic events, he and Ragna ended up in a highly undesirable location. Crimson, typically prepared for various scenarios, finds himself in a particularly dire situation, having been captured immediately upon arrival. Princess Starlia, the commander of the Royal Army's special troops, is the one who has apprehended Crimson. As she inquires about the situation, her subordinate explains that Crimson and Ragna were unexpectedly drawn to their location through a magic circle, but assures her that the mission remains unaffected. Starlia learns that Ragna is in critical condition and cannot communicate, but after testing his blood, they determine he is not a dragon and thus provide him with medical care. Crimson, on the other hand, has agreed to answer questions in exchange for not having his blood tested. During their interaction, Starlia offers Crimson dragon meat, which he vomits upon realizing what it is. Starlia's amusement at his reaction contrasts with Crimson's contemplation of her remarkable abilities and history. Starlia, known as the Silverware Princess, possesses unique telekinetic powers that allow her to manipulate objects with her aura. Despite being born without arms, she demonstrated exceptional control over her surroundings from a young age. By the age of 6, she had already defeated 3 inferior dragons single-handedly. 2 years later, she triumphed over a horde of dragons, including 2 medial ones, solidifying her reputation as a prodigious talent. Her achievements extend to winning tournaments and developing equipment specifically designed to combat dragons. Crimson, Faced with the challenging task of deceiving Princess Starlia, who can discern lies through her unique ability to see aura changes, contemplates his response to her questioning. He recognizes that Starlia plans to use the magic circle to escape the country due to the imminent threat posed by Zora and Terratectora, two formidable dragons. Crimson sees an opportunity for cooperation, as their goals align in seeking refuge from the dragons. However, the difficulty lies in how Crimson can convincingly lie to Starlia. He decides to blend truth with deception, leveraging his genuine frustration towards Ragna, who is currently unconscious and thus unable to contribute to the situation. This blend of emotions could mask his true intentions from Starlia's perceptive gaze. As Starlia grows impatient with Crimson's delayed response, he realizes she hasn't detected his annoyance. This discovery leads him to conclude that he can indeed manipulate his aura to conceal his lies. Seizing this opportunity, Crimson decides to partially reveal his identity, showing one of his eyes to the group. And that's the end of our video. To see more, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.